So to get started, let me introduce to you our very special guest speaker for today. We call him Boss A. His full name is Apollo Angco, the relentless influencer. He will be focusing on the topic redefining leadership with over 25 years of dynamic experience spanning entertainment, IT, BPO, name it. Apollo has a proven track record of transforming professionals into influential leaders, and was twice named the top 100 Filipinos to follow on LinkedIn. So let's now all give a warm welcome to Apollo.
Hi there, everyone. As you know, my name is Apollo Angco, and I'm honored to have been asked to be the guest speaker for the Philippine Leadership Collective. I plan to share my thoughts on leadership from my personal experiences and will break down the Boss A way. I'd also like to share that I'm not trying to get anyone to sign up to get coached by me, nor am I trying to find a way to monetize my philosophies. I'm merely sharing myself with you in the hopes that some of you may resonate with my thoughts, experiences, or approaches to life. Boss A is a persona that I use on LinkedIn for advising leaders, employees, and companies. I refer to myself as an influencer on my LinkedIn profile and often get asked what this is or what that actually means. So, why influencer? So, let's get this out of the way. It's a term I coined that refers to an old school approach to experiencing things for yourself and not just accepting everything that the internet or influencers throw at you. It's going against the grain to be a leader that isn't concerned with likes, but is centered on integrity, leadership, and carving out your own unique path to reach success. It has more of an internal focus for growth rather than a dependency on others to pull you. You create your own momentum and strategies. You fight a fair battle with absolutely zero apologies. And you don't beg people to follow, but you mentor those who choose to. So, just as with any other leader, please follow at your own risk. So, I believe that in order to understand the man, you have to understand my DNA. So, you need to see what I'm made of, and I live by four basic principles. Okay, the first one is never work for anyone you don't like. And I'm just being real. Okay, I promise you that I will never put your kids through college or make your car payments for you if we don't get along. The second principle is only do things that you love. It's all about choices. If you do, work will never feel like work, and then the actual trick will be how to turn it off. The third principle is never deprive yourself of anything that you want to try or do, because life is short, time is fast, and you hold the pen to the story of your life. Many times we forget this, or we know it, but are just too afraid to share our thoughts because people might think we're crazy. People will criticize and say, Apollo, you're too old. I mean, hello, Vera Wang didn't get her fashion career started until she was 40. Colonel Sanders didn't put out KFC until he was 65, right? So people will always tell you it can't be done. But let me tell you, I think they're just afraid. They're afraid of being left behind. Or if they see you succeed, they're going to have to question their choices and their journeys and their lives. The fourth principle is I was once told this and it changed my life. At best, you have 75 Christmases. Think about that. How old are you? How old are your parents? Some are lucky to have more Christmases and even luckier to have more with the people that they love. You learn to pick and choose your battles, and you fight a lot less with the people that matter in your life. You sleep more strategically and live more intentionally. You're more aware of the pen that's attached to your hand, that's in charge of writing the chapters of your life, and you start to own more of what happens and where you choose to bring your life. As early as I can remember, I've always wanted to set myself apart from the rest in a good way. And maybe it has to do with my name and how I got it. I was named Apollo after the Apollo 11 spaceship because I was born when Neil Armstrong stepped on the moon. Or maybe it was because I was the firstborn of a firstborn who was the firstborn of a military man who was also the firstborn of a military man again. Talk about years of discipline, expectations, and responsibility passed down. That's 4 years, that's 4 generations of pressure. All right. From an early age, I was never drawn to the life that was dangled in front of everyone. Everyone makes a series of choices to get to where they are. So I have to assume that everybody is happy and content because we all made these choices that have laid the blueprints for our different journeys. And none of us has identical movies of our lives. Some characters come and go, and where I am the handsome main character in my life's movie, I may just make a cameo in yours. But even if I'm just making a cameo, I want to make sure it's where the trajectory and the storyline of your life's movie changes. So I want to be able to impact people positively. So let me start off this section of my talk with an oldie but a goodie. The old 3 truths and a lie. So here we go. And basically you have your hands up buttons there, but I'll take a quick little poll after. But first of all, I'll make 4 statements, right? So the first statement is I have met Boys to Men, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, and 98 Degrees. The second statement is I have kissed a shark and ripped out one of its teeth. The third statement is I've been a commercial model. And the last statement is I've been a provincial champion in the sport of badminton in Canada. So I've given you some time to think about that. So let's see who I was able to fool here. So how many think the first one was a lie? Just put your digital hand up there. Okay. How many of you think the second one was a lie? How many of you think the third one was a lie? And how many of you think the fourth one was a lie? Okay. So I have met Boys to Men, Backstreet Boys, and NSYNC in Germany, and we opened for 98 Degrees in Vancouver. I have been a provincial champion in the sport of badminton in Canada. In fact, if you Google Apollo Angco badminton champion, you should have some results in there. And I have been a commercial model for sardines, candy, and pancit bihon. I have never kissed a shark. And in fact, if I ever saw a shark within 100 meters of me from the water, you'd probably see me running on water. Okay. So as cool as this exercise may be, what I find to be the ultimate in amazing truths is what I refer to as people metrics. Now, people metrics are numbers that will never show up on a resume, but they are probably more important than any metrics you can share about yourself. They're the numbers that matter to you for different reasons that no one will ever know unless you share them. But they'll give so much more depth and insight into you and how you're hardwired. I'll give you an example. For those of you there who know me, you know me to whatever degree. You might know me very well. You might just know that I'm a top 100 person, or maybe you're just meeting me tonight for the first time. But let me share some of my people metrics with you, and then let's see how you feel about me after that. I have 4 people metrics that I can share. The first people metric that I'm going to share is 111713. Now that basically stands for New Year's Day in 2017 in Subic. I noticed a family taking pictures with their 1-year-old child, but they had stopped paying attention to their 3-year-old girl. And unfortunately, she fell into the swimming pool without anybody knowing. So I dove in and saved her. Okay, that's something that's important to me. I'll never forget. The next people metric is 7620. In June of 2020, at the height of the pandemic, and while in between jobs myself, I focused on connecting 70 jobless people with jobs in that 3-month time span. Now, I didn't have to remind myself that I didn't have a job myself. My wife was perfect at doing that. for reminding me that while I was helping all these people that I had a family myself. But I felt comfortable knowing that we would be okay. But these other people needed some help. They'd already gone maybe 6 months to a year without work, and it was important to help them. The third people metric is 80 plus recommendations in LinkedIn. So the average profile on LinkedIn maybe has about 3 to 6 or maybe 9 recommendations. I think I'm at about 80 plus, 85, maybe close to 90. And these are people that I have mentored, led, managed, or helped. And the last people metric that I have is 12/20/2003. For your information, my daughter's birthday is 12/13/2003. And the reason why this date is so important to me is because it's the date that I saved her life when she was choking and she'd already turned blue. I was able to help her out, to help revive her, and I'll never forget that day. So these people metrics add some additional insight that help make your perception of me a little bit more whole. People metrics matter, and they tell you a lot more than any profit and loss accomplishments could ever tell you about a person. Just think, if people feel like they know a person better after they've read their resumes, how much more would that change if they had access to their people metrics? We all have them, and these are part of the attributes that make up your superpowers. So, speaking of superpowers, just like the old Justice League of America, all leaders bring unique powers to the table. As an ambivert, and for those of you who don't know what that is, it's not a gender, okay? So relax, okay? An ambivert is a combination of an extrovert and an introvert, okay? And I already knew that I had a unique gift, and with great powers comes great responsibility. I had to use that line because it's about superpowers, right? So I could hang with the best of those who could bottoms up any concoction, dance with utter disregard, regardless of how many could see me, or cheer like a crazy leader, least expected by my staff. But given the opportunity, I preferred a quiet night alone in my fortress of solitude, maybe with a guest or two, but just to chill and recharge. So maybe I just reserve my performances for the crowds and then cherish my time in the dressing room before and after the show. Speaking of shows, I managed talents for showbiz for almost 25 years, which means my other superpowers were identifying talent, creating visions for them, and then developing them patiently and proactively. I would get excited about pieces of charcoal that people would walk by every day because I could see that with enough effort, consistency, and fire, there was a diamond in there waiting to get out. This extended beyond my artist management and continued into corporate world where I would identify potential leaders in the same way. In retrospect, I seemed to have other powers which were a bit unique. I had the propensity to dive on bombs, put myself at risk, or walk through fires for my staff or companies, which almost became a curse because even if you could withstand fire and heat and you were able to eventually regenerate, why the heck would you want to? And it isn't without its mental trauma or physical pain. I developed a talent for curbing fear and teaching people how to use it for results rather than retreating. I showed people how to appreciate fear in the way that a military man or police officer would rely on fear for their survival. In that way, fear then became a gift. The last of my superpowers is my ability to see the end goal and draw the shortest, most creative line to it, and that would be both effective and memorable. I'll give you an example. So I used to manage a boy band that was scared to make eye contact with our audiences. And so the next day at practice, I brought in 4 attractive young ladies to help me with the exercise. I would pair each guy up with a girl and have each guy sing the entire song to his partner with 2 main caveats. They had to make eye contact the whole song, and they had to be touching nose to nose while they did so. By the end of the practice that day, not only did each guy master looking into their audience member's eyes, but they also made sure to brush their teeth before every practice, just in case. So that's what my colleagues called extreme management. So if you believe in heaven, then you have to believe in hell. And just like that, along with having superpowers, we all have our kryptonites. These are the things that wear us out, bring us down, play on our fears and insecurities, or cause us to act uncharacteristically. For many leaders and employees, companies indirectly bank on the fact that we all have the following insecurities. We all fear losing a job. We all fear starting over. We all fear that we're too old to look for new work. We all fear that we won't be able to pay our bills and put food on the table. We have this fear of embarrassment and humiliation at work and at home, and we have the fear of sickness due to stress. The list goes on. And these insecurities, they aren't unique. Yet, here's an interesting thought. How would we act if none of these fears actually existed? Would you take that vacation that you've been planning for months with your family that just happens to coincide with a recently announced regional executive visit? Would you air your honest opinion in a board meeting about a bad move the company is about to make or something you don't agree with, even if it was against your boss? Titles can often rule leaders, and companies know this very well. Carrots. Carrots can be evil because they often get us to do things beyond our scope of work, and they extend us beyond our hours of operation. We aim for these empty letters to paste below our names that might as well read company slave or absentee husband or father wannabe. And sure, I mean, some come with additional numbers, but at what cost? And I'm not saying that being ambitious is bad. All I'm saying is that in the pursuit of professional perfection, if the quality of life is what we're after, how the heck do I get my wife's quality of life? I've been asking myself that for years. So on top of these pressures, we also have to deal with these other issues concerning our staff and corporate mandates, as well as return to office or work from home arguments that can lead to quiet quitting or behind the scenes booing, which are some of the negative issues thrown our way since the pandemic. But be careful how you deal with issues and how you deal with people. Everyone is a potential digital witness, and we're all cyborgs with phones attached to our hands to get answers at the press of a button or to frame real life situations in a way that can be compromising for the subjects on the video. Listen, if you're going to lose your job, lose it to numbers and not to social media predators, okay? Speaking of numbers, that's the biggest challenge of them all. As sales processes change in front of our very eyes, the never-ending, unforgiving numerical targets tasked to us are raised quarterly and annually without remorse. So power pellets and cans of spinach. Are there people here that don't know what these are or what they're used for or why I'm even bringing them up? Just in case, power pellets are what Pac-Man used to eat in order to be able to eat the ghosts that were chasing him. And cans of spinach has to do with Popeye. Okay. So when presented with challenges, you always have two options, or in my case, there's three. One is you run away. The other is you find a solution and you face it head on. And the third way for me is to ask you to look me in the eye and tell me that I can't do it. I think there's something in my hardwiring that's seriously faulty because I go berserk when personally challenged, and the competitive drive in me goes from 1 to 1,000 in a matter of seconds. That's always my first reaction. Then cooler heads prevail as the rational leader in me tries to sell a vision to my people so that the heavy lifting is more manageable and I have more people with skin in the game. So basically, I have 4 gears I can shift to. I mean, there's neutral, and then there's reverse and run away. There's drive and fight. There's overdrive to win at all costs, and four-wheel drive to strategize accordingly. Another can of spinach is to always focus on the prize and not the price. It's a combination of optimism and thinking big. This helps to steer away from being naturally negative and to shift your focus to the possibilities and on the strategies to get there. I use this to roadmap my journey, to keep a more grounded approach to wins and losses and to stay even keel. So there's no thrills of victories or agonies of defeats. The journey is already a roller coaster. So save your energy and have a great plan. Be prepared to tweak often, and it's okay to make mistakes. Just be honest with yourself. We had a very uplifting cheer for our teams in Francis Lieberman High School back in Canada. And when we would watch the games, if our team made an unforced error, we'd do the following cheer to lift them up. It's okay, it's all right, just don't do it again. And that was supposed to make them feel better. So one of the things leaders can do, apart from depending on one-time, big-time solutions, is to make small changes in their lives that will amount to massive transformations down the line. I always tell people, if you make a 1 degree adjustment to your angle, it may not seem like a lot, but further down the line in its trajectory, you'll see that the lines are kilometers apart. For this reason, I choose to address every day, every nightly prayer, and every challenge by leading with gratitude. It throws such a massive curveball to your mind that you end up approaching everything with a fresh and positive perspective. Don't forget, it can always be worse. And no matter what you're going through, I want you to keep this in mind, that somebody didn't wake up today. So allow me to share some of my Boss A values. Boss A values are standards that I hold myself to. Some were passed on to me by my dad, and others I picked up along the way. So if you've ever seen any of my posts on LinkedIn, you might recognize some of these. And I believe I've coined these myself. So my first one and most favorite one is, if you say, then you must. It's one of my favorite sayings. It's the whole concept of a man's word has been lost over time, and everything relies on agreements, lawyers, and receipts. The notion of integrity and the value of a man's word is something I will never stop promoting. When a person is on their deathbed, they don't wish they bought more stuff or that they had more work accomplishments. The common answer is that they wish they had more time. And for this reason, I regard time as a very precious commodity, and anyone who wastes it by being late, not showing up, or forgetting about it altogether has shown me the ultimate form of disrespect possible in my books. I once resigned from a job in Canada, and I hope they're not listening. And if you are, hi, how are you? Nice to see you again. But I left for a better opportunity. And I remember drafting my resignation letter and submitting it to my manager. She read it out loud and had a puzzled look on her face. She continued, and it said, I, Apollo Angco, as of this day, formally QU, and that was it. She asked what QU meant, and I told her it stood for quit, but I quit before I finished writing the rest of my resignation letter. Bye, right? So I recall before this whole EQ thing was a thing, and I was asked by my board what approach I wanted to take with my staff because attrition was rampant company-wide. And I said that my approach was a form of hug therapy, which embodied the same principles as EQ does today. And I recall being ostracized so much for that. And I never really got over that because yes, I was ahead of my time, but I saw what people needed. And we all know the price that pioneers need to pay at times. And I actually hope these guys are listening and you know who you are. In terms of leadership, I will always hire with the intention of moving that person to a position greater than the post that they're being interviewed for. If it's a manager, I'm looking for someone who has the potential and capability to replace me. I'm not afraid to put myself out of work. In fact, I see that as my job. But I'll keep evolving to keep raising the bar. I'm not going to make it easy. As a team leader, I'll give my position to someone who can contribute better than me, and I'll take my spot on the bench. If I need to, I'll give up my jersey and clap in the stands if that's what needs to happen in order for us to get the win. That's how much of a team player I always want to be. Our challenge as leaders is to nurture, develop, and support our people. We are the brace that keeps everything intact. So who supports the brace? When we have to be there for everyone, who can we turn to in order to be heard, to offload our fears, to share our concerns, to reassure us that we can do this, and most of all, to give us guidance on how to move forward? In a world where everyone looks up to leaders to have all the answers, to say the right things, to ensure that everyone is treated with kindness, equality, and respect, what safe spaces do leaders have? When everything hinges on their decisions, actions, and strategies, who do we get to lean on? So at times we find ourselves drowning in darkness, fighting the silent battles and addressing the hidden fears we carry in our hearts, unable to show our humanity for fear of being ostracized or singled out, hoping that our power and confidence isn't stripped from us, and most of all, praying that our bosses and leaders don't see us sweating or hesitating to make decisions. We don't want to fail our people, but they're unaware of the risks and consequences that we bury deep in our thoughts to prevent them from panicking. Being the confident boss is sometimes an exercise in wearing a costume that's 3 sizes too small. It exposes us in areas we can't see. As uncomfortable as it may be, we need to wear it well. Then there's the burden of championing 100% of the mandates that come from corporate, whether we believe in them or not. Bullies in the office aren't just for rank and files. They can apply to other leaders as well. It's shocking how many leaders are bullied by other leaders. But the rules are played differently at this level. And sometimes you have no option but to play the game. The countless hours spent climbing the corporate ladder, obliterating our job descriptions, alienating ourselves from our families in order to provide a life for them that they can be happy in. We're doing it for them while we're doing it to them. How ironic. Oh my God, where are my manners? At this point in my talk, may I offer everybody a slice of Boss A pie? PI stands for perspective is everything. We can easily succumb to victimhood or panic to the point of sickness, or we can choose to change the lenses on our glasses to reprocess the situations at hand. So when I'm going through tough times or I'm stressed to the max, I try to use a different perspective to approach the issue with. And it changes my approach and positively impacts my outcome. And I'll give you an example. So when I'm confronted with a difficult scenario, I might consider how many people who are in a similar predicament that are watching me, that need to see me succeed. As leaders, we're the most watched, so we never know who we're inspiring. This raises my threshold for pain, and I go into showtime mode. And this is when leaders need to put on their shows. Or on the flip side, I might stop to consider how many of my detractors are praying that I fall flat on my face. You know what they say? If you can't do it for the dream, do it for the nightmare. What happens if I fail? Hell no, not gonna happen. So when I feel I'm backed into a corner or in a dead end, I stop to slow everything down and then focus on my right hand and remind myself that I hold the pen to the story of my life. I wrote myself into that spot. I can write myself out of that spot. So whether it's an issue, a relationship, a job, or maybe the movie of your life has gotten a bit boring and monotonous, you can make that change if you want it bad enough. So what's wanting it bad enough? It's like when someone is holding your head underwater, it's trying to drown you, and all you can think of or focus on is getting to the surface and taking that big gasp of air. That's what wanting it is bad enough feels like. Maybe the problem or the negative situation isn't even external. Maybe it's internal and you find yourself struggling with mental health issues. I was asked to be on a panel one time for mental health issues after Anthony Bourdain died. I had no idea why. I didn't know why I was asked, and I was definitely the only dinosaur on the panel. All panelists were sharing their stories of how they were depressed, but they got through it, and people were so supportive of their courageous story, one after the other. I was like, oh God, what the heck am I going to share that won't get me booed off the stage or beat up for being insensitive? So I opted to go with the truth. I said I didn't know why I was on the panel, especially after listening to everybody's stories. But as it moved down the line, one story after another, I realized I needed to learn this because Bourdain wasn't a millennial, nor was he a Gen Z, and he went through it. Robin Williams was the same. So I said that maybe as a leader, I'm here to learn from all of you to understand this better. I came from a time where our only option was to man up or to get your ass kicked. Who knows? I may have been depressed at one point, but I just didn't know, and we didn't have a term for it yet. So I guess to get back to my original point is that leaders get hungry too. We get sleepy. We have great days. We have crappy days. We have problems at home, in our relationships, with our kids, with bills. So yes, hell yes, we also have mental struggles from time to time, and some worse than others. Leaders struggle additionally because we don't feel we have the outlets or we're ashamed to admit we need help. The fear of perceived weakness from above and below are real. But this is where we really need to stop and have some pie. As I wind down my talk, and you can add this to your list of things to be grateful for, I'd like to try a short exercise with you, and I'd like you to really go ahead and do this along with me, okay? I want you to close your eyes. Now, I want you to imagine you're on a beach wearing your most comfortable clothing. You're all alone. The sand is warm and you can feel it going in between your toes as you walk. The sun is up and starting to warm your head, but not too hot. You start to go towards the water, and when you take your first step in, it feels magical. The perfect temperature of not being too cold or not being too hot. It's warm to the touch. You walk into about a few inches of water and then you sit down. Now you lie down slowly and you feel your head half immersed in water, but it feels soothing and relaxing. As the water rises, you're slowly being pulled into the water, but you're fully supported, and water doesn't bother your ears, nose, and mouth. You become fully submerged, but you can breathe easily. And in fact, your breathing starts to get deeper, and you can feel the air bypassing your lungs and going straight to your diaphragm. Now you're totally floating about 3 inches from the surface. You're very relaxed, and the water is cradling your body and supports your full weight. The warmth of the sun brushes against your face, and the light sway of the water is comforting, comforting with a rocking that allows you to let go. Now, with every breath, inhale to feel cool air coming in. See it as white clouds going inside of you. Then, when you exhale, I want you to blow out all of the negativity in your life. With every exhale, think of what bothers you, what pains you, what keeps you awake, and blow it out with every breath you exhale. I want you to think of those who hurt you, who try to stand in your way, ridiculed you, and talked behind your back. Every time you blow out, you're blowing that pain out. Think of everything that is negative in your life and slowly blow it out. Now that you've done this a few times, your body feels a bit cleaner on the inside. Now concentrate and bring your mind back to a time in life where you were the most proud of yourself. Not just a time where others were proud of you, but a time when you were the most proud of you and what you had done and accomplished. Remember the moment. What were you wearing? Who was with you? What did you do? How did you feel? Think of the actual moment of crowning glory. Think about how you got there, the sacrifices, the difficult decisions, the people who believed in you. Focus on the moment. Feel that moment. Fill your body with strength. Fill your body with healing. Fill your body with forgiveness with every cool breath you inhale. The gentle rocking and swaying of the warm water is relaxing and complements the coolness of the air you're taking in. So now I'd like to ask everyone to slowly open your eyes and shake out your arms, body, and stretch your neck a little bit. And I'll leave you all with a few simple statements. As leaders, we have slightly different challenges. Our roles are critical to helping our bosses and staff put food on their tables, to put their kids through school, to have quality of life worth living, to ensure that the companies that are entrusted in our hands remain profitable and strong while under our watch. That can get pretty lonely as we lead from the middle. I make sure to have a very intimate circle of trusted friends where we can always offload or vent without objection or malice. This keeps me grounded and secure in knowing that some time-tested people will always be on my side or oppose me when I need opposition. They'll help to remind me who I am and what the plot of the movie of my life was supposed to be without any butt kissing. So groups like the Philippine Leadership Collective, who encourage leaders to be themselves, share their thoughts, and it may take a while to be 100% honest because we're open to the public and cancel culture is still quite strong. So saying how we really feel is still somewhat of a pipe dream at this point in time. It makes me miss the times in our past where we didn't need to filter so much and ideas and expressions were real and understood. But this is a great start and a healthy approach to developing, adjusting, and understanding leadership and what leaders go through. I hope I was able to make a little bit of a difference today, and I want to remind everybody that all we have is each other. I got you. We got this. Thank you for listening to the Boss A Way. Boss A out. Thank you.
Yay, all right. It's okay. It's all right. Let's do it again. Thank you for the real talk, Boss A. That shifted our pies, shifted certainly our perspectives in sharing your superpowers and also some of the amazing stories that you shared with us. Okay, I think this is time for us to do the Q&A. We do have other questions in line. But for that, here's one question from Mike Doden. Um, there's a fine line between contentment and complacency. How do you know when to stop pushing yourself?
If you're asking me how I know, then when my body's not moving anymore and I'm not breathing anymore, that's probably the time I'm I'm gonna stop. But you know, it's really everybody has their own dreams, and if your threshold for pain is different than mine, then I might be willing to go a little bit further. And I'll give you an example. If I had a boy band and there were four members, and one person is content with being popular because they hear their song on the radio, and one person doesn't want to stop until their parents are retired because they can retire them, it probably won't work out because they have different thresholds for pain and they have different objectives. So it's all individual. For me, I'm probably not going to be able to retire. I'm probably going to keep going and moving forward, and my dreams won't stop because life is short and it's borrowed time. I want to make the most of it.
Thank you for that, Apollo. So it's your life. So you hold the pen to the story of your life. Thank you so much. Another great question. If you can't be a king, be a kingmaker. So that's the line, right? Is there any value in being best supporting actor? Like always being the best man, but never the groom. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think if you and I don't want to get overly spiritual, but I mean there's a reason for all of us and to find our meaning on this in this lifetime, and we call it raison d'être. And so when you're able to identify why you're here, it might be that to make that cameo in people's lives to sort of impact them in the most positive way, where that's where their life kind of takes off in a totally different direction because they met you. I don't think there's any shame in that game to be somebody that is a kingmaker or is a supporting role. It's all perspective.
Great. Thank you, Apollo. We have two more questions. One question is, you were saying about the quality of life, right? And we're all in pursuit with that. When you say quality, what is quality of life for you?
The quality of life for me is I'm a big proponent of thinking big. Okay, so I believe that there are definitely things that we can do and we can change. We don't necessarily have to go with the flow. So when I talk about quality of life, it's really about choices. It doesn't have to do with materialism, but there's nothing materialistic about wanting to put your kids in a safer school, a safer neighborhood, um, a nicer car that will be safer for them as well. I think when we talk about the quality of life, sometimes we kind of bring down that level because the numbers dictate to us what we should be ordering. I'll give you an example. When you go into a restaurant and you take a look at the menu, a lot of people will look at the right side first, right? Instead of looking at what they actually want to eat because they're looking at what they can afford. And but if the right side wasn't an issue, would you have lobster every night, right? And so I think the quality of life has nothing to do about being extravagant. It's about choices. And I always want to give myself choices. I want to help people have choices.
Awesome. Okay, one more question, Apollo. You mentioned earlier that you have a superpower of identifying talent. What do you think is your secret to doing that?
Um, a lot of it is gut, but I think, attitude plays a huge part. I think getting to know people, and when I say getting to know them, it's not just like, oh, hey, what's up? And it's really getting to know them, getting to know their burn. Their burn is why they're wise and why they want to do things or who they eventually want to help and what they want to make of themselves. And then obviously the talent has to come in. But once you have the the minimum requirements, the rest of it is attitude, right? So if somebody has enough skills that can be developed, what you can't develop is the attitude, and that's kind of the key component there, whether it's music or leaders.
All right, thanks, Boss A. One more question.
I have one. Apollo, hi. Hi. I
Hi,
mean,
Vicky.
I know we've talked before, but somehow
Hmm.
you keep on bringing something new, especially when you answer that question about the kingmaker. But um, there's this one question, and we were talking a little bit about the cancel culture
Hmm.
earlier and what's going on there. But to some extent, would that cancel culture also be a way by which you deal with negativity? What do I mean? I mean, it's a when you surround yourself with people that you don't normally agree with, or you feel negative, or you feel stressed about, sometimes some people would just cancel them out, and that whole thing is a relative thing, right? So
Hmm.
I don't know what your thoughts are around that.
Well, I mean, I think it really boils down to the art of communication has really taken a hit over the past couple of decades. When we have to think about what we have to say, so much before we actually say it, to the point where it might not even be what we want to say anymore. You know, uh, the cancel culture that we're referring to is, and we talked about this, is in order for leaders to really have that safe space, can they really and truly say how they feel? And I've talked to a million leaders. There's a lot of leaders out there who will tell you from leader to leader exactly how they feel, but it will never come out in a town hall. It will never come out on paper or in social media. But that's because there's a lot at stake. You take the wrong clip and send it to upper management, and all of a sudden, you know, you'd be frying burgers the next week, right? And so it's a it's a challenge. So the communication, it took us a while to get to this point where we can't really just say how we feel anymore. And so a lot of that is a form of canceling, right? So I mean, at the end of the day, we only have one life, and if we can't even communicate properly, then we're just gonna have a whole bunch of people staying home, being quiet and whatever, right? And that's not how we're gonna get anywhere. So these are our challenges. There's no. I wish we had a solution.
Mhm.
But right now, well, as we were talking about, I think comedians are kind of the last front that can really speak their minds, right? And even then, like I said, they're collecting cell phones before their shows because they're still dealing with that as well.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Messiah has a question.
Wait, hold on. Hello?
Hi
Yeah.
there.
Hi, bossy. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah. Have you heard about toxic positivity? This is one of the things that are happening, and I've heard a lot a couple of times. You think this is harmful? Some say it's harmful, well, generally, but I'd like to know your thoughts about this and how we're going to be able to navigate through this as leaders. Because having a positive outlook in life is good, but having too much of it may not be as good as much, right? So maybe you can also help enlighten others. I've heard about this from the the younger generations. So maybe some of the leaders here might also be enlightened on how we can help cope with it too.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing, right? Like toxic positivity. I mean, that's it's hard for me to process that. Um, so in what kind of can you put that into context or some example for that, Misai? Like what would be a good example of toxic positivity?
Yeah, a good, well, generally it's the definition of toxic positivity is really having that positive outlook in life um, all the time. Meaning, some examples of this is dismissing others' difficult feelings, ignoring your own problems, hiding painful emotions. Technically, trying to cover when you're having a bad time, you're trying to cover those trying not to heal yourself, but covering it up with positivity that may not be as helpful for you. So it means too much positivity um, that may not be good for your mental health as well, because you're not dealing with your emotions, but rather hiding it and running away from it. And they say it can be harmful. So um, I
Yeah,
think this generation also has mentioned, the younger generation have mentioned a lot of it, that they are also undergoing some signs of toxic positivity. But I'm not sure about our generation though, where in fact as you've said, the examples earlier, I think where our own mental health problems we were dealing in the past, we may not be aware that we were having mental breakdowns and such, because that's how we are wired. But I think the younger generation, and I've heard a lot of this in my HR practice, most of the time dealing with the younger generations, that they are showing signs of toxic positivity. And maybe as leaders, we can be enlightened how we can cope with it, and how we can help navigate our younger ones to turn this toxic positivity into something really productive and dealing well with their own pain and own ways to counter this overly positivity on their own.
I think there's and I think I understand a little bit better. And there's an example that I have here where, a lot of the I'm not gonna say the younger folks. I mean, there's a lot of people that are plugged into social media, right? But I think the whole notion where social media right now is it's almost like a tool to try and make people engage, or to try and make them to try and show that their life is so good, to the point where it's almost backfired. And this is why our cases of depression have shot up, right? Because why can't that be my office for the day, where you're showing a picture of your feet on sand or whatever, right? You're showing an amazing dinner, but you're not talking about how tough it was or how much it costs or whatever. It's all about, it's a facade that through social media, where it's really designed to make people question how happy they are, right? And so when you talk about that, and if you're totally plugged into that, then the answer is to unplug, right? Start dealing with the real, start dealing with real conversations, start dealing with real happiness, because faking the happiness, I mean, you can fake it till you make it, but at the end of the day, you're either happy or you're not, right? And so you have to find that happiness. Um, and there's a way to go about it, but and you're almost, it's like using that whole dress for success kind of principle, where if you dress successful, maybe you can be successful at some point. I don't think happiness works that way, right? I think if you fake it, it'll kind of come back twofold, that you're actually really unhappy. So I think you just need to be honest with yourself. Don't compare yourself to other people. And that's kind of the downfall of social media, where it's really been an exercise of trying to show a facade where, other people's lives are amazing, and you're trying to compare to that, and there's just no need. I hope that answers that, Isai.
All right, thank you for that, Miss Sai and Boss A. And one more question for you, Apollo. How can you strike a balance between authority and approachability?
I mean, authority, authority has to do with your job, right? Approachability is who you are. Now, sometimes you have to draw lines in the sand because we can't always hang with everybody, and if they're gonna have a great time, then we have to manage that respect that we need to uphold. But I think they're apples and oranges, right? I mean, you should be able to handle being both. Authority is what you have to do, and approachability is just who you are, and you want to make sure that, listen, if you're allergic to feedback, then you just have to get used to having silent staff who are never going to share their problems with you, right? So you want to be approachable so that you know the problems, you can fix them. If you don't know them, you can't fix it. And so that's why you need to be approachable. And leaders, we have to learn too, right? So I mean, we're not perfect. There's some leaders there that are still positional leaders, right? I'm the boss, so do what I say. But I think those kind of bosses are, few and far in between now.
We bring our session to a close tonight. We would like to introduce our next guest speaker, si Jerry Ilaw. Yay! He's a visionary entrepreneur and innovator, and he's a leader in the AFF, or Association of Filipino Franchisors. And he also has a great story about his leadership journey, going from employee to entrepreneur. So please make sure to attend. We hope that you'll join us. Super duper thank you for tonight. Of course, a big thank you to Boss A. Yay, that was such a profound talk. And also thank you for PLC, Vicky, Sean, the founding members, for putting this up for all of us to learn, to get refreshed and to get inspired as well. And don't forget, please be active. I hope that everyone can be active in our group. I myself am still trying, but I really love the posts. I appreciate them. If you are not a member yet, we do have 170 plus collectives. So if you're not yet a member, ayan, please go ahead and be a member as well. Sean over here will be waiting for your message. And of course, a big thank you to each and every one of you. It's a Monday, and some of us are in vacation already. So we hope that you guys had fun and have found an inspiration moving on from this session. So see you again. Adios.